So these fish are looking very beautiful. It's been 5 weeks since I've been here. It's an Aquael Glossy aquarium, and it's good every now and then when you bring a sample of water and a video down to see us at the shop to even show us how you feed the fish. So in this case, we're getting fed predominantly Spectrum's probiotics, but they had a couple of other Spectrums lying around. So the food's about as good as it can get. And in this case, the fish have been getting that much food. Now, looking at the fish, they look very good. So let's just whack that in there. And then let's just have a watch of what happens. So as a rule, we're normally looking... Hey, Licky, how are you? So yeah, they haven't figured out that the food's over there. Over there, guys. No way.
Yeah, they usually get fed there.
Yeah, so they're sitting here looking at the food going, come on, where's the food? No, now they're getting the idea together. Okay, so as a generalization, we normally want to feed the fish what they eat in about 30 seconds. And let's say that's 30 seconds from when the fish actually work out the food's in the water. But over time, you just want to be looking at the belly of the fish. And all in all, these fish look very good. But I would probably like to see them fed just a tiny bit more. And we want to make sure that the pellet is a decent size. So that's pretty good. They could even go up a size in the pellet, because I do find that the bigger pellets do tend to maintain the bigger fish better. So I would be very happy with that food. But if there is a larger size, which I actually think there's not of that particular one. So otherwise, the Spectrum wafer is really good too. It's a full diet, and you can chuck in some of the Spectrum wafer, and it does allow the fish to graze off the food, and it does take about 24 hours before that food starts to break down. So it is a really good idea. Do you have any catfish in there?
Not yet. That's all that's in there for the moment. I was waiting for the first clean before we...
Yeah, so getting some Plecostomus catfish and even large bristlenose would definitely be an option and help to keep the water... I'll keep the glass nice and clean. So these fish are looking very good. There is just a little bit of discolour in the water. So I'd probably like to see the water be just a little bit more clear than this. So the two things I'm going to recommend. First of all, we're going to put some polyfilter in. What polyfilter will do is adsorb and absorb anything impure out of the water, and definitely can help the clarity of the water. And then I would actually add some activated carbon. Now this tank has very, very good surface agitation. I'm very happy to hear that. And you could think about getting some large pelletized activated carbon to put in this internal filter. If you did get frustrated with this sound, then you could just remove this and just aim it off. This is doing a very good job of agitating the water, and I'm very happy with it. But if this sound is frustrating, then you do have the option of just pulling that off, and you can still get agitation from the top, and then you wouldn't be hearing this sound if that was annoying you. But if it's not annoying you, then don't worry about it, because it's actually doing a really good job. And I love to see this. This thing is your friend. This makes cleaning the glass so much easier. I'm just doing a gravel clean using my gravel cleaner. And the gravel was really quite clean. Mind you, this tank's only been up for 5 weeks, so I would say it's predictably clean. So when you're doing a water change, you've got a few motivations for doing a water change. Motivation number one is if your gravel is dirty. Now, the other thing is that the gravel dirty also is a little bit of an indicator about whether the filter's dirty, because as a generalization, not a fact, if you try gravel cleaning your gravel and your gravel's clean, that also means, a lot of the time, that means your filter's clean. This is not a fact. This is just a generalization. So I'm going to open up and clean the filter in a second, but it is often the case that because the gravel has come out quite clean, that the chances are the filter will come out clean too. Now, if you go and do your gravel cleaning and your filter cleaning at the same time, then what I'm saying has some, but not really, truth in it. If you're doing your gravel more often than you're cleaning your filter, then obviously my not totally correct assumption can be not totally correct. But at the same time, if your filter is flowing very well, like this one is, then chances are it's not that dirty. And these sorts of filters, this is a very good filter on this one, and these actually are quite easy to clean for canisters as well, because some canisters are a complete pain in the neck to clean. This particular model, I don't mind them. I think they're not too bad. So these sorts of filters, in a perfect world, I usually want to clean about once a month, but that's a very big filter for this tank. So depending on the amount of stock you've got, it's about 1 to 3 months. If you don't have a lot of stock in the tank, and let's call this not a huge amount of stock, then cleaning that every 3 months is not unreasonable, but cleaning it once a month is what I want to do in a perfect world. And also for today, I definitely want to clean it because I want to put the polyfilter in it. The other reason why you want to do water changes is for accumulants. Now, accumulants are basically just things that accumulate in your water. Now, nitrate and phosphate are things we can test. So if we start seeing elevated nitrate and phosphate level, then we're definitely going to ask you to change your water more often. But also you can get what's called a Gilvan tint. And a Gilvan tint is when you start getting a discolor in the water. And that can be due to too much biological activity, which obviously water changes can help. And this one looks like it's got a little bit of a green tint to it, which means if it's getting a fair bit of sunlight, or if the lights are on a little bit too long, then that can cause a little bit of a bit of green in the water, which is absolutely no problem to the fish. So there's various products like activated carbon that can help, polyfilter can help, and then the other thing you can experiment with, particularly if you're not using the medias like activated carbon and polyfilter, is things like algae fix. You just need to try some things and see what works for you to keep your aquarium lovely. But these fish are looking beautiful. Now, when turning off power, I am a big fan of having a central power button. So when you turn off the power button, all the power goes off. What I'm not a big fan of is individually turning things off, especially if you're doing things like cleaning filters and so forth. When you individually turn things off, then there is a possibility that you individually forget to plug it back in or individually forget to turn it back on. Whereas if you keep it plugged in all the time, but you have your power killed, then you'd have to be all sorts of special to remember not to turn it back on again. So turning it back on in one go means that you're not going to individually forget anything. I highly recommend is using a white bucket for your water changes, because a white bucket's really good to notice any discolor in the water, because you'll quite often look at aquarium water and you think it's actually pretty clear. But when you put it in a white bucket, you can actually really see if there is any discolor. And if there is discolor, you can either do more regular water changes, or you can add products like polyfilter and activated carbon. If you're ever cleaning out these really fancy Aquael filters, it's really important not to forget that there's a pre-filter that sits in here. So I've come across these units and people have not known about this. And these pre-filters are really great because they allow you to actually clean your filter without having to go and take the whole canister out. So if you wanted to give it just a quick clean, you can pull that out, you can leave it in situ, and then you can pop that back in again, which is actually a great little feature. But it's also easy to forget about it. And if you forget about it, that's not so good. The other thing is to remember is that all these filters have got impellers, which in this case is there. This is a brand new filter, so I'm not going to bother cleaning it now. But at least a couple of times a year, you want to pull that out and give it a clean. Now, this filter is super clean. And I thought it would be because the gravel was fairly clean. A little bit of waste there. A little bit of waste there. But all in all, this is a pretty clean filter. Now, the other thing we could actually do with this filter is we could upgrade the media that's in it. So Aquael is a very, very good filter brand. But there is actually better quality medias that you could put into your good filter brand. For example, if you wanted to give this tank an even larger capacity, you could consider changing one of these sponges for Marine Pure. Marine Pure would be like in excess of 20 times more effective. So for a little extra investment, you're going to like put a turbo in your filter. I would also like to see, I'm going to put some polyfilter in there now, but I'd also like to see a little bit of activated carbon, because that will really help to clear up the water as well. If you're ever playing around with these fancy Aquael filters, it's really important you make sure that O-ring there is in position before you shut that down, because it's really easy to forget that, and then your filter leaks. And make sure that the O-ring here is in position before you put it on. In winter, we never want to change too much water at a time. What I'll normally do is fill up about 5 centimeters, then I'll add a full dose of prime to dechlorinate the water. Then I'll let it fill up another 5 centimeters, then I'll load another full dose to the tank, and that will just ensure that we're not adding anything in that can have an adverse action. You never want to put straight tap water in an aquarium, otherwise you're playing Russian roulette. You see them mouthing each other's ventricle or anal area, and then you see them sort of slapping against each other and chasing each other around. That's breeding behavior. Very common with goldfish. In an aquarium like this, though, you'll find that when they're doing that behavior, all the other ones get excited and chase them around, eat all the eggs as soon as they pop out. So goldfish egg scatterers. So if you've got plenty of bushy plant like this one, there is a possibility of some of the babies surviving. But in a tank like this, with lots of hungry mouths, you'll find that even if the babies do survive, you find that they usually just get eaten anyway. So unless it's a pond and it's an environment where there's lots of places the babies can escape to, then you can pretty much bet that they're all going to be live food for the rest of your fish. It also does muck up the aquarium a fair bit too. So if you do have big volume goldfish running around trying to breed, that is a fair bit of extra load on the aquarium that you do need to be aware of. So a little bit of extra water changes, otherwise you can start seeing the water discoloration or nutrient levels starting to accumulate. See the goldfish chasing each other around and mouthing each other's anal area, then the one doing the chasing tends to be the male, the one getting chased tends to be the female. And in general, the females tend to be fatter And when you see them slapping, the one doing the slapping tends to be the male, the one getting slapped tends to be the female. And then the other thing to be careful with goldfish is make sure that they don't have any big lumps on them, big red lumps that can burst, and they're often known as fishpox. Now, fishpox is a herpes virus, and if you see that, do not buy those fish, because it is a contagious condition, yet it doesn't really affect the fish that much. If their immune system is good, the herpes virus is no different to like a cold sore with us. But if their immune system falls, then it is another thing they have to tend with, which is absolutely and totally not a good thing. So the key to seeing any pox on your fish is do not introduce those fish with other fish. They must be absolutely segregated for the rest of their life, otherwise you're passing on that condition. Goldfish are actually rescues out of a pond, and they're very mesmerizingly beautiful, friendly, interactive goldfish. So they've taken to fish tank life very well, and this is a very happy batch. I think some Plecostomus or some Synodontis catfish, some bristlenose catfish, seeing some scavengers running around in here would be great. And then you've really got to be careful not to overpopulate goldfish, because they get relatively big. So I definitely wouldn't want to see more goldfish going in here. I just want to see some catfish to help keep the place nice and clean, particularly in reference to cleaning the algae. And make sure you never put sucking cats with goldfish, because sucking catfish often suck on the side of the goldfish.